The way that highly effective CEOs use their time is completely different to how most overwhelmed CEOs use theirs. Because most CEOs measure a good day by how busy they were, how many meetings they got through, how many problems they solved, how many tasks they ticked off. But the CEOs who actually move the most forward are not the ones with the fullest calendars. They're the ones who protect their time differently. And that difference is what this video is about. I'm going to break down the three areas that top CEOs prioritize to ensure their time is actually driving the business forward. And to help you go deeper on this, in the description, you can take my CEO bottleneck diagnostic. It's a free assessment that takes 7 minutes, and it's going to help you uncover where your time is actually going, what's draining your focus, and where the business depends on you more than it should. If you're new here, I'm Byron Morrison. I'm the author of The Effective CEO 2.0, and I've helped first-time scale-up CEOs in 18 countries to become the leader their business needs. And one of the things I hear from almost every CEO I speak to is some version of, I know what I should be doing, but I just can't seem to protect the time for it. And that's a huge issue because the reality is everything you do has a cost. Every hour you spend on one thing directly comes at the expense of something else. Like that meeting you shouldn't have been in is an hour of strategic thinking time, or that problem you shouldn't have jumped into costs you time that could have gone into direction, strategy, or leading your team. And the reason this is so dangerous is that in the moment, it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like you're doing your job. But what's actually happening is the work that only you can do, it keeps getting pushed back. And before long, you end up working hard all week, but then you look back and you don't actually know what you moved forward. One of the core ideas of my book, The Effective CEO 2.0, is that being busy is not the same as being productive. And this is key, as the best CEOs don't measure their days by output, they measure them by what they moved forward. There was even a Harvard Business School study on this where they tracked 27 top performing CEOs around the clock for 13 weeks. That's 60,000 hours of data. And what they found was that these CEOs were spending 43% of their time proactively pursuing their own agenda, and 36% of their days were reactive. They also found that 30% of their time was spent completely alone, thinking, planning, preparing, and deciding. Whereas most first-time CEOs who come to me for help have those numbers completely flipped on their head, where often 60, 70, 80% of their time is spent firefighting and dealing with reactive problems. And that's why I want to challenge you to think about this yourself. If you look back over the last couple of weeks, on an average day, how much of your time was spent on tasks that moved the business forward? And how much was spent in meetings, problems, or situations that weren't a good use of your time? I know that can be an uncomfortable realization to make, but that clarity is also the first step to solving the root cause of the problem. As so often when a CEO reaches out to me for help, they think they have a time management problem, when in reality, they have a time protection problem. So if top CEOs aren't filling their days with meetings, tasks, and firefighting, then what are they actually protecting? Well, when we break it down, almost everything a top CEO protects falls into three categories. The first is strategic thinking time. This is time to zoom out, to ask, where is the business going? What's getting in the way? What are we not seeing that needs to change? I find with my private clients that one of the best ways to approach this is to block off time every single week to work on the business. Now, for most, this is generally a Friday, as that seems to be the easiest day to get away. And during this time, they take a half or even a full day with no meeting, calls, or dealing with anything unless it's absolutely critical. Then they intentionally use the time to revisit progress on their strategy, to think through problems, to ensure the plan is on track, and to uncover bottlenecks in areas of the business that need their attention. With pretty much every client, though, when they first start doing this, they feel guilty. They worry their time isn't being used productively, and that's because on an identity level, they're still tying their worth to their output. They have a belief that if they're not hustling or grinding, they're not getting enough done or working hard enough. Before long, though, all of them start to see that actually the time to step back is the most important part of their week. After all, you can't see the battle when you're stuck in the trenches, and it's only when you slow down that you gain clarity on what's actually happening. So just bear that in mind, as the feeling of guilt that you get from doing these tasks is not a signal that you're wasting your time. It's a signal that your identity is still tied to the doing, to the output, to being in motion, to feeling useful by being in the middle of things. This is why when you're not ticking things off or seeing them tangibly move forward, you feel like you should be doing something else. So watch for that. Because remember, overwhelmed CEOs, they tie their value to their output, whereas effective CEOs tie their value to what they move forward. And until that shifts internally, strategic thinking time is always going to feel optional and keep getting pushed back. The second thing that effective CEOs protect is leadership and direction time. Not firefighting in messages or answering questions as they come in. Instead, it's intentional time where they bring the team together to focus on setting direction, breaking down problems, aligning priorities, and ensuring that the right decisions are being made. This is not the same as being available all day. Because what I see with a lot of first-time CEOs is that their leadership happens reactively. It's in the quick conversations, in voice notes, in responses between other things. But availability is not leadership. And when leadership is reactive, direction stays blurry. It leaves your team unclear on the actual priorities. Decisions get delayed, and you end up feeling like you're always on, but never actually leading. But when leadership time becomes intentional and structured, everything starts to become clearer. And the amount of time it actually takes also tends to go down because you stop answering the same questions 4 different times across the week. The third thing that effective CEOs protect is high leverage individual work, which is generally the work that only they can do. The thinking, the decisions, the relationships, the creative or strategic work that requires their specific judgment. This is something that I help my private clients to clarify when we're defining their role in my Evolve CEO program. But I also talk about this in my book, The Effective CEO 2.0. Essentially, it comes down to figuring out what should your role look like at this stage of growth. And to do that, there's 3 questions you need to answer. What is your zone of genius? Where does your time have the greatest impact? And what can only be done by you? Because once you know what you should be focusing on and prioritizing, it then makes it easier to uncover what you're doing that shouldn't be on your plate. Because I see it all the time when I audit a CEO's days to see where their hours are going, and the work that only they can do is getting the least time when it should be getting the most. That's why, to help you uncover this yourself, I created the CEO Bottleneck Diagnostic. It's going to show you specifically where you're stuck in the weeds, along with what's draining your time and energy. The link to take it is in the description below. Now, protecting the right time is only half of solving the problem. The other half is removing what shouldn't be there. And this is where most CEOs struggle. Because the meetings that shouldn't be in their calendar, they still feel important. The questions you shouldn't be answering, they still feel like they need you. The problems you keep getting pulled into, they still feel like they're your responsibility. And most first-time CEOs I come across often don't struggle cutting these items because they're unclear whether or not they should be involved. Instead, they struggle because being in the middle of things makes them feel like they're being useful. Saying no makes them feel like they're letting people down. Stepping back from a problem you could solve makes it feel like you're not doing your job. But what's actually happening is the business has trained itself around your availability. And every time that you step in when you shouldn't, you reinforce that pattern. This is why I say that your calendar is always a direct reflection of your identity. And if your identity hasn't shifted from being the doer or being needed, then your calendar is always going to fill back up no matter how many times you try to clear it. So here's something practical you can do this week. Look back at your diary for the last 2 to 3 weeks. Go through every meeting, task, commitment, or problem you got pulled into and put it into one of 4 strategic categories. Strategic thinking time, leadership and direction time, high leverage individual work, and reactive low leverage work. then look at the split honestly. Because if the first three categories are mostly empty, fragmented, or squeezed into small windows between everything else, then that's a sign that too much of your focus is in the wrong areas of the business. Because remember what I said before, every hour in the fourth category came at the direct cost of something in the first three. And that cost is often more than revenue and growth. It's the strategic plans you never get to, the dinner you don't make it home to, the sleepless night lying awake, worrying about how you're going to get on top of things. That's why clarity on this is so important, because once you're clear on where your time is being spent, the next question from there is simple. Where do you need to start protecting time that you're currently giving away? For most of the CEOs I work with, the first thing we do is we carve out one protected block every single week where they take half a day to think, plan, and work on, not in the business. This block becomes a non-negotiable where, unless the building is on fire, they protect it as the most important part of their week. The second thing is to figure out how much time you need every single week for your key tasks of working on the business and then building your schedule around them, instead of hoping you find a way to get to them. This is how you prioritize what's important long term rather than just being pulled into what's important on any given day. And I'll tell you exactly what most of the clients say when they first try this. It feels wrong, which is one of the most useful signals that you can get, as it shows that you're still thinking and operating like the person who built the business or got promoted to the role and not the CEO needed to scale it. And by realizing that, that's when you can start to see where the shift needs to happen in the way that you think, lead, and operate. Because the difference between the CEOs who feel in control and the CEOs who are constantly feeling behind is not how hard they work, it's what they protect their time for. Because top performers aren't the busiest employee in the company. They're the ones who are intentional and deliberate. They guard their strategic time for thinking, their leadership time, and their highest leverage work, like those hours are the most valuable asset in the business. Because they are. And if your week doesn't reflect those three areas, then that's the gap. So there you have it. This is how highly effective CEOs use their time. And if you've been watching this and recognizing your own week in it, then you already know what the problem is. So if you want to understand this on a deeper level, then make sure you take my CEO Bottleneck Diagnostic. It's a free assessment that takes 7 minutes that's going to help you uncover where and why you're stuck in the weeds, where the business is still too dependent on you, and what needs to change. And if you're running a scale-up company, then I personally review every submission and I send back a report on where the bottleneck's forming and what you need to address first. The link is in the description below. Now, I'm curious, from watching all of this, which of these three areas are you protecting the least right now? And what is the biggest realization you've had on what needs to shift going forward? Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. And if you found this video useful, please hit the like button and hit subscribe, because every single week I put out new videos for first-time CEOs on how to become more effective in their role. I've been Byron Morrison. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.